This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 158 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I am actually sitting in my hotel room in Cairns in far north Queensland recording these in-between bits for episode 158. Now I'm hoping the sound quality is not too atrocious. I'm in a room surrounded by pillows. Well, the room's not. I'm on a bed surrounded by pillows and cushions. I've never been so grateful for having lots of extra pillows in a hotel room, and recording without my fabulous mic, but a good substitute. And anyway, I just thought I would be a real travel podcaster and record while traveling for once. So here I am. Now, I'm hoping that I'm not going to jinx myself, because this episode is about when travel days go wrong. And I do not want a travel day to go wrong while I'm on this trip, and I'm only partway through. So fingers crossed. Hey, fortunately in the past I've had plenty of things go wrong, but I have not had the kind of things go wrong that my three guests today have had go wrong. They're quite, a bit more extreme than what I've had go wrong. And probably at the time they did not enjoy it very much at all, but they have made great stories for us to tell. So let's get on with the show, as they say. My first guest today is Nate Hake, and he had a travel day, or a few travel days, that went a bit wrong once when he was in Bolivia.
So I was going to Uyuni, which if anyone listening has ever done the Uyuni salt flat tour, it's the big attraction in Bolivia. You go through these wonderful salt flats. You've probably seen the photos of the people with the dinosaurs and playing with perspective. So a toy dinosaur looks like it's about to eat you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So to do that, you have to go to this like desert town in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's really far from the rest of Bolivia, called Uyuni. And I had booked a flight in there from La Paz. And I had met some folks on in a hostel in Peru who were a day ahead of me in doing this same sort of schedule. And right before we get on the plane to fly to this town in the middle of nowhere, me and my friend I had a friend who was traveling with me at the time. We get a text that says, just so you know, there's protesters who have shut down the entire city. Nobody can get in and out. You're probably going to have to walk from the airport.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And we then took off, and I lost service, and I was like, oh my gosh,
wow,
what's going on? So when we landed, I immediately turned on my phone before we get on the plane. I started researching this. Turns out it's a fairly common thing in Bolivia for these smaller towns to just basically, whenever they have a sort of dispute with the government about something, because the government, it's a socialist government, and so government controls a lot of aspects of life. And in this case, I think they were protesting the rates that they were getting for some land that the government had taken away from them. They felt like they weren't being compensated fairly for that. And what they would do is they just shut down the whole town. They just basically blockaded. They put a whole circle around the town. Wow. And nothing can get in or out. And so this had happened a few different times. There were other reports online of this having happened to travelers, because again, this is a place you have to go in order to start these tours.
Right.
And so we land with this plane full of tourists. Everybody is expecting to have taxis or people pick them up at the airport, and they get out, and it's a small little airstrip in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing. There's nothing happening. And the airline attendants just like unload the baggage. We grab our baggage, and everyone's standing around confused. And I just like told everybody in Spanish, like, you've got to walk to town. Nobody's coming to pick you up. And nobody believed me. And I just started walking. And then eventually we turned around and we saw folks behind us. And this whole airplane full of people. But I was really nervous. I was like, well, what's going to happen when we get to the blockade line? Yeah. And so we walk in. It's only about a couple kilometers to town, but it's hot desert. You're pulling these bags. And you come up and you see, sure enough, on the road, there's this like big line of protesters, and they've got rocks basically blocking the road all the way across.
Okay.
And just sort of slowly, I was like, I don't think that they're going to do anything to us, but we'll see. I mean, we have to cross this. Like, the only other way out of here is to go take another flight out. You couldn't even get to the bus station without going through the town.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and we walk up, and sure enough, like, the protesters, they're not really bothered by us passing as pedestrians. So we walk into town, we go to our tour company where we're supposed to go on this 4x4 tour, and they say, yeah, like nobody can leave until the protests are over because they will confiscate any Jeep or any vehicle that's coming in and out as part of the protest.
Oh gosh.
And sometimes they can get a little violent in doing that, and we don't want to risk losing our property or having someone hurt or any of that.
Fair enough.
And so I said, okay, so we're in this town is like, Uyuni is a horrible place. Like it's like completely and I don't say that about many places. Like, this is truly a godforsaken town that has very little to offer other than as a base for starting these expeditions. And so we start inquiring around and basically trying to figure out how long these protests last. And they said, well, in the past, they've gone anywhere from 24 hours to 2 months.
Oh, no.
Like, okay, 2 months is not going to work.
Yeah.
Obviously had onward travel plans and, we like.
And what would you do there for 2 months?
Yeah, 100%. And so we had planned to stay in there's a hotel made out of salt.
Cool.
About an hour outside of Uyuni. And the plan originally was to go in to get set up with our tour company, go spend a night in this hotel made out of salt, and then have them come pick us up and do the tour. And so we start calling the hotel because the tour company, we can't find anyone in town who will take us out. There were reports of some travelers who were basically paying, I guess some enterprising folks in the town will try to run the blockades. Like they'll try to find ways around it, particularly under cover of darkness, if you pay them enough.
Right.
And so, and so you can potentially make it out. Well, we had some friends, our friends apparently had managed to make it out with one of these folks who was doing this just sort of as a way of making extra money, and they managed to make it out of town. But then we find out from our tour company that their whole SUV had broken down and they were stuck in the middle of the desert and couldn't find anyone to come get them. So we're just thinking like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this solution?
Oh my goodness.
But I will say that hotel, Luna del Sol, wonderful hotel. So we called them, and the next day they sent a driver in who was, because they had to do a supply run for the hotel because the hotel had basically no food. Right. And somehow this driver had come in. He comes in at dusk. We get in, and then they basically we start heading out of town, and he's going on complete back roads, super slow, because he's trying to avoid being seen by these protesters, going through a ravine where a river would sort of flow. It was all dried out, dried bed. Yeah. And then at some point he just tells us to get down, and he just hits the gas, and these protesters come and start throwing rocks at the Jeep.
Wow.
And so we have thankfully none of them broke a window or anything, but they easily could have broken a window, hit us in the head, anything like that.
Yeah.
And we managed to make it out, but we saw quite a few other Jeeps that had been confiscated with people standing around outside.
Oh no.
And yeah, that driver, I gave him a big tip.
Yeah, he deserves it.
So then we arrived at that salt hotel that night, late at night. And this is actually one of the best places in the world to do stargazing. They have a lot of major telescopes out there. And so we arrived at this hotel, and it was just like an oasis, being away from all of this and getting to go out and see the stars. And then we ended up being stuck at that hotel, though, for several days more because we couldn't find anyone to take us on our tour of the salt flats. But at least we were outside of that terrible town. So being stuck in a luxury salt hotel wasn't the worst thing in the world.
It sounds like the best of the options available, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And eventually we did find another person who was an actual tour operator who had, because we were calling tour operators every day trying to do this tour without having to because the only other option was to just drive all the 6 or 7 hours, hire someone to drive us just away and just completely give up on it altogether.
Right.
Because even where the hotel was, they still had to run the blockade in order to get out to the tour. But eventually somebody else was sitting in the lobby of our hotel, and they had managed to find someone, and we snuck in with 2 extra spots. And again, this wasn't, people tell you when they do these Uyuni tours, be very careful about what companies you use because there's a lot of accidents, a lot of drunk drivers. It's very easy to flip a truck out in the middle of these salt flats.
Wow.
People die every year. And I had put all this research into finding the company we were supposed to go with, which was one of the reputable companies. Mm-hmm. And of course, we ended up going with someone who hadn't even done the tour before, basically just was this was a way to make money,
yes.
Because they could charge more with the protests.
Oh my gosh.
But it was fine. It was fun. And it was one of the tour ended up being incredible and really is a totally worthwhile adventure that you should definitely do. But hopefully there won't be a protest if you end up doing it.
Touchwood, I have never had my travels interrupted by protesters, and I hope I never do, because that could be really tricky. As it often is the case, it all worked out okay in the end for Nate, but there were obviously a few hairy moments during that time in Bolivia. Now, my next guest is Justin Watson, and he has, an equally hairy story to tell about something going wrong on one of his travel days. And it was on a trip when he was returning from the stands back to Australia and via China.
Got to the airport, checked in, got on the flight, and I was flying from Bishkek to... The flight went from Bishkek to Urumqi, which is in Western China. And
yes.
And from there, it was going into Beijing. And I was going to spend 5 days in Beijing because I've never been to Beijing. And I thought, look, while I'm there, I'm going to make the most of it. And because I had to get a visa for China anyway.
Yes. So you want to actually see something.
So I had to actually get a double entry visa for China because I flew through on the way over. And so anyway, and the flight I got a flight deal on one of the Chinese airlines, and it was like not a lot, $1,500 or something like that. About 7 or 8 flights in that, so it seemed like a really good deal. Like it wasn't cost me money. I thought, okay, well I'm going to go visit Beijing. Anyway, got on the flight, fine. Landed in Urumqi, got to the border at the airport. And if anyone who knows things about like airports, you tend not to be allowed to get on the plane if you don't have a visa or things like that. So airlines are held responsible, so they tend not to even let you on the plane. So when I got to the border and the guy's like, hey, where's your visa? So I flicked through the passport and there, my Chinese visa, and I could see it had two visits on there, and maximum stay was 7 days per visit, and I hadn't violated. I'd only been once, and I'd spent 3 days or 2 days on the way over. And I showed him, he's like going, no, you need a visa. And I'm like going, but that is my visa.
This is my visa.
And he's like, I don't think he spoke any English other than some basic words. So
visa.
Like visa. So he went off to get someone, and they came back and he said, your visa's expired. You need a visa. And I've gone, why is it expired? So, and I never got an answer on that one at that time. And then he said, you have to go back. And I said, I can't go back. I need a visa to go back to Kyrgyzstan. And literally 2 weeks after this happened, Kyrgyzstan opened up their borders a lot more, and I think Australians, among many others, were able to travel to Kyrgyzstan visa-free. But it didn't help me at the time.
No, not useful at the time, no.
It was 2 weeks in the future. And so the conversation went on. They said, you can't come to China.
Oh, gosh.
You haven't got a visa. And I said, okay, can I go home to Australia? And they said, yes, but you have to fly. You have to go somewhere. And I said, can I get a flight to Hong Kong? Are there flights to Hong Kong? Because I felt I knew Hong Kong fairly well. So I thought, if I can get to Hong Kong, this problem will go away.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, you need a visa for Hong Kong. I've gone, no, I don't. Australians don't need a visa for Hong Kong. And the guys looked at me and said, Hong Kong's in China. You need a visa for China. And I'm going,
no.
And this conversation's going around in a circle. And I thought, where else can I get to? Because that part of the world is in no man's land for, was at the time. I don't know if there were direct flights into Russia or Mongolia from there. I suspect Russia there probably were, but
you need a visa.
But I need a visa for there. And so I went to Japan. I thought, can I get to Japan? And no, there are no flights to Japan from Urumqi. And then I thought, and then I do remember someone talking about Turkey, and I said, what about Turkey? Can I get to Istanbul? And which I think I still needed a visa but could get on arrival. And no. Anyway, so the guy says, come with me. And I go with him, and his English wasn't that great either. I think for most of them it was Russian. They were far more fluent in Russian, being the part of the world they were in.
Oh, yeah, because it's right up there.
the native Uyghur language. So English was about fourth on the list of languages. And, I got into this van and I got taken to a place, and I was taken up into what looked like a hotel room, and it may have been, but there were bars on the window.
Oh no! Oh.
And I had two guards with guns, and there was a bed and a TV and a bathroom. So, so I've gone. And the guy who could speak some English said to me, "Just wait here." I've gone, okay. And at this stage, I'm going, I have no idea what is going to happen here.
No,
I was really, really, really worried.
Mm-hmm.
The two guards stayed in the room with their guns because nothing makes you feel safer than two guards with guns. And they said something to me about pointed the TV, and I said, yeah, turn the TV on. And I went to grab the remote, and the guard took the remote and just found something he wanted to watch. So all in Mandarin, and he flicked the channel, and there was some English on. I was that one, and he just kept going. And, I was too scared to even go to the toilet. Like, I didn't know, was I allowed to go to the toilet? I had no idea what was going on.
Oh, my goodness.
The guy who spoke English came back, and he asked me if I was hungry, and I said, yeah. I am hungry. Can I have something to eat? And he says, yes. He says, do you have any money? And I said, I went through my wallet. I had some money, and he just took a note off me, and I got, okay. And about half an hour later, he came back with a plastic shopping bag full of weird Chinese snacks and a couple of drinks, one of which I think was something like an aloe vera drink, which...
yum.
Yum. And I think some water. I did get some water, so that was okay. And look, I think I was there. I think all up because I didn't really look at the time that much. I was definitely there for several hours, and from the time I got off the plane to the time I ended up being taken back to the airport was about 8 hours. So
wow.
And got taken back to the airport. I mean, the guy who could speak some English, and I didn't have a mobile phone either. After that trip, I kind of started travel with a mobile phone with like a translate app on it because I kind of because I found that really useful after that moment in time. But and I got taken back to the airport, and he says you have to buy a ticket
to go
home. Anyway, get taken up to an airline counter, and he starts talking to them. They have a discussion in Mandarin, and she looks at me and she says, to Melbourne. And I've gone, yep, that'll be fine. Because I didn't really care. It could have told me anywhere in Australia would have been fine by me at that stage.
Yeah.
I figured I can be resourceful enough.
Yeah. Melbourne is vaguely close enough to home.
Yeah. And then she wanted an amount of money I just didn't have. It was something like, I could be wrong, but something like 10,000 won renminbi. And I'm like going, I don't have that. And they said, I said, do you take credit card? And they said, no, we don't take Western credit cards, or there's a whole lot of issues with Western credit cards in China. So this started, and then the guy.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, I knew I could get some money out of the ATM, so we went to an ATM, and I got the maximum, which was 2,000. And he's like looking at me, you need more. And I've gone, yeah, okay. I got another 2,000, and I got another 2,000. And then my card got refused.
Right. Because too much at once.
My bank had put a block because it just had seen 3 maximum transactions from a random ATM in Urumqi.
Yep.
And the
looks pretty suspicious.
And all I had was that money. So,
oh my goodness.
And he says, you need more money. So I can't get more money. So we go back, and eventually I think we found a flight, and I thought, then so we got the flight, and then I got escorted through immigration, and on my bags, he made sure my bags got checked in all the way back to Melbourne, got escorted through, and then I got a stamp in my passport that said, in English, all I could understand was 24-hour permit, and he said, you have 1 day to get out of China.
So clearly Justin lived to tell this tale and did get out of China after being given 1 day to get out. And eventually later on, after he'd got home, he found out what the problem was. So the visa was a double entry visa, but it was a particular kind of double entry visa that allowed 2 entries of 7 days, but only 30 days apart at a maximum, and his 2 entries were 32 days apart. And so, unfortunately, it was completely not his fault. He'd, applied for the visa at the embassy. The embassy had his flight dates and all of that. So basically, they had given him this wrong visa and caused him no end of trouble. But I guess the good thing to come out of it, Justin, is that you got a good story to tell me for the podcast. So that's something, I suppose. I don't even have a really cautionary tale on it because really, even checking your visa in this case probably wouldn't have helped. He, basically tried to do all the things correctly. So yeah, but great story. So thank you, Justin. Now, my final guests today are Natasha and AJ. I haven't spoken with them on the podcast before. They're from a site called Two Idiots Travel, and it seems kind of appropriate, given that they're self-confessed 2 idiots, that they're on this episode for their first appearance about travel days that go wrong. And I'll let Natasha and AJ explain, but it was a situation that happened to them in Bangkok.
We were on a cruise in Southeast Asia cruise, and we stopped at Bangkok. We stopped at a port outside of Bangkok, as some cruises do, and then there was a bus to Bangkok. And as with all cruises, you always feel like you don't have enough time in the city.
Yeah.
So we are the savvy travelers. We decided to make our own flexible schedule. We let the bus from the ship actually take us all the way to Bangkok, but we thought the bus was leaving way too much earlier from the city, coming back to the ship. So we said, hey, we're not afraid of Bangkok. We're Asian. We got this. So we decided to just stay longer, told the bus, don't wait for us. We're just going to get an Uber back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can see where this is going.
you can. Of course, we did not. So we decide to take the Uber. Our son's asleep in the back. It's a pretty comfortable ride. It's a straight highway. And somebody, meaning AJ, should be monitoring the driver to see that he's going the right way. But somebody is in the front reading, because AJ is the one who always thinks the best case scenario. I'm the one who thinks the most negative case scenario. So he's thinking of the best case scenario. So son's sleeping, AJ's kind of like reading in the back. I'm kind of falling asleep. I don't know. And after a while, we're looking at the map. Eventually, I think AJ looks at the map and the driver looks confused and he doesn't speak a lot of English. And we've realized we've missed our exit.
Oh, no.
So we were just making it to the cruise, and now we missed our exit. And we have to take a longer way. There are no exits on this highway. It's a straight highway, no U-turns. Language barrier, and now we're freaking out. So we take the long highway. We finally get to the port. By the way, Bangkok, Thailand has huge ports, so it's like an airport terminal. Now the cruise is calling us, and I am panicking, crying. Don't have my passport. My passport's on the cruise. That's what they do.
All right.
Panic, telling them we're coming. They're telling us we're at a port. I don't know what port we are. Literally, it's like a huge airport terminal. Think like the biggest airport ever. We're in the wrong terminal. It's not a cruise. We're trying to get the guards to tell us we can't figure it out. We're gonna miss it. We're gonna miss it. And lo and behold, and every place we turn, there's traffic at the port. Like literally cannot get past it. Finally, I think we're making it to the port, and in front of us there is a cruise bus full of people. Okay. And on the phone, for some reason, the cruise people didn't tell us that they were waiting for a bus, because that would have made life a lot easier, because they always wait for the cruise bus. They won't wait for us. So as we see the bus, we're fine. And I am in tears at this point.
Oh, you poor thing.
Actually, it was half an hour later.
No, we have more than that.
I think it was like 45 minutes, at least half an hour. I can't remember clearly anymore.
I'm pretty sure we were at least 45 minutes to an hour late.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're lucky that the excursions were late as well.
Yeah, it was.
And because of that, they waited for us, even though they kept on telling us you're going to be okay. Like, I think Natasha and I
was crying.
You were crying. The worst part was we were yelling at the driver.
Poor thing.
Poor guy, like, he's trying his best. And And we're like, you need to get us to our thing. And like the other worst thing is, which you didn't mention, like the first time we got to the port, they actually took us to a cruise ship, but it was the wrong ship.
Oh no.
So the guards saw the ship. The guards like realized we were going to a cruise ship, and they pointed us in the wrong direction to a different ship.
Oh gosh.
So we get there and we're like, oh my goodness, this is not the right ship.
It was a terrible experience. But two things we learned out of this. A, if you are going to do it like an excursion, make sure on your map you pin the port. Just pin it. You know exactly how to get back.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're in an international country, maybe you should pay attention to your Uber map. Instead,
yes, that too.
But I tell you, I still have PTSD. So because if I'm on a cruise and if it's like the ship closes at a certain time, I need to get there way before time.
I mean, that's probably our worst fear, right? When you go on a cruise ship.
Yes.
Maybe outside of maybe the ship, like
something happening.
losing water or something.
Yeah.
Like getting stuck in like a random country.
So I tell the story all the time because it's interesting, it's fun, and it still ends well. But oh my gosh, I needed a lot of wine once I got on the cruise back.
I bet. I feel stressed just listening to this story.
I think Natasha and AJ pointing out things like following the Uber driver's path on your map on your phone and pinning a port or pinning a location that you need to get back to on your phone points out that thanks to technology these days, we have a chance of letting our travel days not go wrong, but it can still happen. And, honestly, I often feel that we don't want to let technology stop all of the fun happening because, well, otherwise I'll end up with no stories like this to tell. And it worked out in the end. So all's well that ends well, as they say. So that is the tales for the day for this episode of Travel Days Gone Wrong. I wonder if you've had a travel day go wrong and if you'd like to share it with me and the listeners. Perhaps if you pop over to the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers and share a story there. I really don't want to be able to tell you any new ones. I've certainly never had anything too bad go wrong, and I'm hoping that this trip I'm on now as I record this is not the one where that happens. I'm confident it won't. So a big, big thank you to my guests today who've shared their stories of things gone wrong. First up, I had Nate from Travel Lemming, and you can find him at travellemming.com. After Nate, I chatted with Justin Watson, and you can read some of his travel tales at his blog at Justin's World, which is at www.justins.world. And last but definitely not least, a big thanks to Natasha and AJ from the Two Idiots Travel blog, and you can find them at twoidiotstravel.com. The 2 is the number 2. Don't forget to come and join our group for Thoughtful Travellers. Just search in Facebook or check the link in the show notes. And for this episode, you can find the show notes at notaballerina.com/158. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.